Still trying to find a good USB condenser mic. I would like to switch though, because this thing's causing me fits.
Cool. Do we want to say up front, are we doing Evil Dead Rises next week?
Sure, I can do it.
I'm a thumbs up.
I feel like we have. I mean, I feel like it's one we have to.
Have to. Drop everything here.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I will be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing Nicolas Cage starring Renfield, also Awkwafina. John, is in this movie your favorite?
You haven't even named the person who plays the titular character.
Oh, it's a Muppet Baby James Marsden, you mean?
Yeah.
Him. What's his name? I have no idea.
Nicholas Hoult.
There you go. Joining me tonight, first up from Manhattan, New York City, please welcome John Schnars to the show.
Hello, Eric. Next
up from Indiana, just the suburbs, not quite as exciting as New York, but still exciting. Please welcome Casey to the show.
Hello.
And finally tonight from the bucolic Pacific Northwest, please welcome Zombie Girl Ariel back to the show.
Hi.
How does it feel, Ariel, to come have that we brought you back for a just deeply unserious movie?
Well, I think the last time I was on, we talked about Megan, so I feel like we're on a roll with them.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get right into it here. Let's take a quick break so that we can discuss Renfield.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time. Main feature.
Have you had your big break in TV, John?
I don't think I've ever been on TV. Pretty sure.
Weren't you saying you were in the background of like a Fox Business Live shot or something a couple weeks ago?
Oh yeah, I was at a bar during March Madness, middle of the day, and they were like filming a bit about how like I actually don't know.
Madness.
Yeah, but they I was at the bar, and the woman who was like the TV reporter presenter was like back behind the bar. She like got herself a drink.
That was her cool live shot setup.
Yeah. So
consultants tell reporters that it's more exciting if you do dumb shit like that in your live shots. People get paid money to tell people to do stuff like that, is what I'm saying.
I will tell you, this bar was very crowded, and people were like getting annoyed that, that there was disruption of the service happening.
I bet.
So, but yeah, it was fine.
Well, I'm glad you're sober now, John, because I need you to bring me the word of the day.
I was getting nervous.
I don't actually know if you're sober. That was presumptuous on my part.
No, yeah, I've had a couple drinks, just to be clear.
Sweet.
Eric, today's word, arbitrage. Arbitrage.
This is sure you haven't used that before?
I haven't. I looked.
Interesting.
I've not used it. I thought you would be excited. It's a business word. I'm going to give you really one. There's like there's a noun and a verb, but the verb is like do arbitrage. So. It's the simultaneous buying and selling of securities, currency, or commodities in different markets or in derivative forms in order to take advantage of differing prices for the same asset. That's the formal definition.
I learned that word from the Enron documentary.
Yeah, a lot of financial crimes come down to someone thinks there's an arbitrage opportunity. And it's like they're like arbitraging legal, definitions and things like that. And then, the government comes in. It's like,
they were using it in relation to how they were manipulating the California power grid.
Yeah, well, because they were trading power across regions, and that is a classical arbitrage situation.
Listen now, y'all, this is arbitrage.
It comes
I will also accept that usage.
It comes from, here, it says late Middle English, originally denoting the exercise of individual judgment, from the French from arbitraire, give judgment, which originally comes to us from the Latin.
French, famously the most judgmental of peoples.
Actually, I don't have a feeling one way or the other about that, but okay. They don't like having to retire after the age of 62.
No, they do not. Good for them.
They are against that.
From if only we had that kind of spirit here, John.
Yeah.
Burn some shit.
Yes. Well, I have thoughts, but we can leave that for a later pod. Renfield?
Yeah. Tell me about it. Actually, now I just want to know what side you come down on in the French protester saga.
No, we're not going to. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that right now.
Ah, interesting. Interesting.
Renfield. This comes to us from director Chris McKay, whose primary feature credit is the Lego Batman movie. But prior to that, he had done, it looked like about 59, I think 59 is the number I saw, episodes of Robot Chicken. So it's actually, that would have been helpful to know going in, I feel like. You mentioned this stars Nicholas Hoult as Renfield, and then Nicolas Cage as Dracula. We have Awkwafina plays, well, they call her, like, her name is Rebecca, but they call her like Officer Dewey. I think Dewey or not Dewey. I don't know. Whatever her name is.
Her last name is Quinn.
Quinn. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. You then you've got this like crime family called the Lobos. So the setup here is that we're in modern times. Renfield and Dracula are Renfield and Dracula. We actually get like a very brief and pretty fun sort of black and white intro to how Renfield met Dracula for folks who don't know. I guess, like, I don't know. I'm actually curious, before this movie had come out, if you polled 100 people on the street what the name Renfield meant, what percentage do you think could have gotten it?
I mean, I'm barely familiar with it, honestly.
I was gonna say 1%. Like, if
I just recently rewatched Bram Stoker's Dracula, so like it would have been in my headspace more than normal.
Yeah. In any event, all right. So putting that aside, so the Renfield it's the name of the movie. He's also the central character, and it's basically a story of his service to Dracula in a modern day setting in New Orleans, and sort of the burden that he carries. They've moved all over. He sustained him for years. They've essentially, the way he describes it, they've survived all of the sort of religious vampire hunters, but now they're sort of having to survive just like sort of modern society. And so we see that happening. They've set up in this defunct hospital in New Orleans. Renfield has started attending a therapy group for people in abusive relationships. And he's basically using that as a harvesting ground. And he's justifying it to himself because he's saying, like, he's going to go get the abusers in those relationships and like feed them to Dracula. And so that's sort of happening. The other important part of this setup is that Renfield, and you all have to keep me honest on if this has any basis in the book or any other Dracula canon. He has like some power, like the familiar. This part is true. The familiar is given like some powers of Dracula, but not the like full.
In this movie, it's super ninja powers.
Yeah. He doesn't desire blood, and he can like basically live and walk like a human. But when he eats a bug, their life force gives him. It's like the malignant powers. He becomes malignant person.
It's like the fighting
the right way around.
It's like it is malignant. It's also very. It was reminiscent to me of Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde, but like bootleg style. But like you couldn't afford the same coordinators.
It's sort of like classic. I've actually been watching a lot of sort of more modern kung fu movies, and like it is like classic, action movie, fighting and editing, shot selection here. In any event, the plot of this film, I mean, we haven't even gotten to the plot. You've got the Lobo family. They're like a crime family. Renfield sort of like runs into them, and then there's like a little bit of a beef there. You also have Aquafina, who plays this cop who's low level, basically working like traffic stops. But her father was killed by the Lobo family, so it's like her life's mission to stop the Lobo family. So she and Renfield come into each other's orbit, and then it's like they're gonna help each other. Like he saves her, but she recognizes he's can be helpful in stopping the Lobos. I don't know, like that's what I remember and seen.
Love it. Casey, you're jazzed up tonight. What'd you think?
So this isn't going to be a surprise to too many probably, but I love this flick. I'm like the perfect mark for this kind of movie. And I thought, I mean, we all know I love Nick Cage. I thought he was great in this. More than anything, this movie had the perfect amount of camp to it for me. The movie is hilarious, and it hit me in all the right spots, all the right funny bones. And they ramped up the camp just enough and kept it reminiscent of like the OG Bela Lugosi Dracula and stuff too. It was just a great mix for me, and I really got the humor. I thought all the actors were great. I will admit it's hard to accept Aquafina as a badass cop just because she's so tiny, but it was pretty hilarious watching her flipping around and beating the shit out of some brutes. So I appreciate it. And Nicholas Hoult was great. I just thought this was a really good movie, and it really hit all the notes for me. I think there was like a 5-minute period where I felt like it slowed down a little bit when it was kind of when Renfield was explaining his story to Aquafina. That's kind of when it slowed down for me, but it didn't last long, and they recovered right away and kept on going. So overall, I was super impressed. And knowing that he's got so much robot chicken behind him, and if you look further back, Moral Oral, I'm a big Adult Swim fan, so maybe that explains a lot.
Ariel.
Yeah, I had a great time with this one too. I know we're going to get some dissent here in a minute, but I thought it was fabulous.
Don't spoil, Ariel. Come on. Please.
I love old Dracula movies, both the Universal and the Hammer ones, and I love a horror comedy. I love when Nick Cage goes like all out, full Cage craziness, and he does that in some of the scenes here. So I think this movie was kind of made for me, honestly. I mean, listen, I watch so many slow, introspective, like emotionally challenging art house horror movies, and I love that. But
you
sometimes
just described my worst nightmare.
But sometimes what I need is something that's like silly and bombastic and ridiculous. And this gives you all of that. I mean, the gore in this movie and the action set pieces are so over the top and ridiculous that I don't know how you'd be scared at this, but it's funny and enjoyable to watch. And normally, like, I hate CGI blood in movies, but here I felt like it kind of added to the silly, campy factor of it. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I thought Nick Cage was great. He's entertaining. I almost wish he was in the movie more because when he goes, I mean, there are some scenes in this where it's almost like face-off level Nick Cage. And so if we had gotten more of that, I would have been even more pleased. I would say the one con for this is that it does feel a little bit like, and we talked about this in the email chain, like they kind of took like 2 different scripts and just like put them together in a blender. And I think because it's so short, you don't fully get the mob, corrupt cop, thing all the way through. Like it's not as fleshed out enough for me, but I still enjoyed all of it. I thought Aquafina was fun, and Nicholas Hoult plays off of her really well. He kind of reminds me of like a 90s Hugh Grant. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, but and I thought he was great with Nicolas Cage. I don't know. The whole thing I found super enjoyable. I saw it in a theater with just one other person who did not laugh once the entire movie. And then I was like, am I reading this wrong? Because I was like cracking up. I don't know. I enjoyed myself.
I like this. Okay. I saw this similarly. It was like a Sunday night. There was like 10 people in the theater. There were like 2 dudes who were drinking, which smart move in my book,
Yeah.
and would have helped my experience, I think. They were like sitting to my back left, drinking and like cracking up anytime. Like Nick Cage could have sneezed and they would have been like, oh, yes, but like, I don't know. This movie felt like oh man, you said it was 2 scripts crammed together. I felt like it was like there were 12 scripts. I think it had been workshopped to within an inch of its life.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels that way. Like you actually hit it. Like I actually can't disagree. There's like not much you said that I would disagree with. Like the blood, the action, the gore, like all that stuff worked for me. There just wasn't enough of it to overcome what otherwise for me was like, what the fuck is this? Like ultimately, and look, like we can talk about like the movie did very, very poorly. Like it was a catastrophic box office failure. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. I cannot believe they put this in the theaters.
Who is this movie for? Like it's not a horror movie.
It's a movie for streaming services, is what it is. That's
like,
the thing.
Eric, they spent
it's a niche
$70
audience.
million making it.
Holy cow, that's so much money for this movie.
That is too much.
No, but this is the point. Like it was basically, I mean, technically that's like mid-budget, I think these days, but like it's for a horror movie that is astronomical and like unconscionable.
I mean, I did think like while watching it, there is a lot of action.
Yeah, well, for like a buddy comedy movie, that's an unconscionable amount of like so you've got, because you have like Awkwafina and Nick Holt are like yucking it up. But then you have this like Awkwafina and her sister are trying to reconcile their father's killer, and like also their relationship is strained. It's just like there's so many things happening. Like, don't get me started on the mob mom. Like, I'm sure she's like an actress that I should like know or like recognize from other.
Yeah.
She just like wasn't good. Like it was like completely just ridiculous, and not in like a fun ridiculous. Like the version of this movie I would have liked better is actually probably like 10 minutes longer, and the 10 minutes is like more comic set pieces and jokes, because it just wasn't. It was funny. Like I laughed at certain times when he like cuts that dude in half by like jumping off a balcony, and like that was in the trailer though, So it's like there's good moments, and I don't know. It felt like a complete hot mess, in a way that like if I was like drunk, I would have like enjoyed a lot more. I was just sort of like, all right, whatever. Like this is, but at the same time, like Ariel, like you said, like you sit in the theater and I like had a good time, and then I left and I was like, what was that? What was I watching that whole time?
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying, because especially the plot line with the sister did feel completely underdeveloped. We just get a couple quick moments, and then we're supposed to have some kind of like emotional response at the end, obviously, even though it's kind of played for laughs. But I don't feel like you get there because they didn't develop that storyline enough.
So we're like, we can talk about this more later, maybe, but like it felt to me, okay, so they kind of chickened out. The movie's called Renfield. It's about Renfield. His arc, though, he's a killer. Like, he kills a bunch of people. So, like, I think they basically chickened out and were like, his emotional arc and his reconciliation isn't enough. And so we need to have some other, like, human-to-human story and character development here, or, like, character arc. And, like, it doesn't work.
Well, you got to have some of that humanity to rectify his arc, though.
But it has nothing to do with him. Like, it's like... I would have liked something that had more to do with him. They try to make it's like more an Awkwafina movie at a certain point than
it totally
for him.
I see what you're saying. I misunderstood.
I like, full disclosure, was not feeling great the day I saw this. I was having a mental health day, John. Let's say that, and was pretty like out of it, honestly, when I saw this. And about halfway through it, I remember thinking like, so that is to say, if my review of this movie sounds like me describing depression, that may just be what's happening. Because what I was going to say next was like, halfway through this movie, I just felt like, wow, I feel like this has all the ingredients of a thing I would like, but I'm just not enjoying it. So I'm going to be real. I don't know how to interpret exactly how I felt about this movie. I will say though that like that part of it you're talking about, where like it is at least 2 movies crammed together. And at some point, I'm like, is this like a mob movie? Like a shitty mob movie? Because that's the thing, is like, all the mob parts are so bad. I was really heartbroken by my boy John Ralphio in this movie because like he is such a funny comedic actor and he's
Yeah,
just given
I
like the
love him.
cheesiest shit to say in this movie. And he, for what it's worth, does a lot with it because he's just a funny dude. But like, it just that stuff didn't really work for
Wait,
me, and it's a
is
big part of
he-
the movie.
Is he Teddy?
Yeah.
He's the son, yeah.
His
Teddy
name's-
Lobo.
Wait, what is the you?
No.
You gave
He
Ben
was-
Schwartz is the actor's name.
No, he was Jean Ralphio on Parks and Rec,
Yeah.
who was the dude that Aziz Ansari was always getting into some dumb like business with. That's pretty much all I know him from. And
Gotcha.
he also was Sonic, I
Yeah,
believe. Yeah.
he
Yep.
is Sonic. Yes, and will
So-
be in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 2024. Mark
The
your
other
calendar.
thing I felt like was I kind of had this feeling like modern Nick Cage is like a thing I'm really glad exists. It is super neat to see somebody being able to exist within the Hollywood system with such authenticity, for real. Like it's really rare. He has gone from really when he first started doing this stuff, people almost didn't know what to make of it, I feel like, and would kind of would joke on about him and stuff. But now I feel like so many people have just been won over and been like, yeah, Nick Cage, yeah, like do your weird shit, whatever. So I love
When you
that.
say so many people, you mean like horror
Internet
fans,
people.
right?
I
Like
mean,
genre
internet people. Yeah, for sure. So like,
Casey and then-
but it's working enough for him that he's getting
yeah.
good role. I mean, like 70. I bet a good chunk of that 70 million went to him, if I had to guess, or at least a decent one.
Yeah,
But,
He's got
um,
taxes to pay.
Yeah,
Paid
no
on
shit.
this, don't worry.
He's got to pay for that crypt that he bought in New Orleans that he's going to be buried in. He bought like one of those like above ground crypts down
Oh,
there.
nice. Good for him.
Anyway, but I don't know that I always love sitting around for the performances. It's like I like that he exists and he's over here doing his thing, but when I got to sit through it, I'm like, I mean, like I get it, like I understand. It's like it's a little much, because I didn't even think he was the funniest part of the movie. I actually thought the Renfield dude himself is funnier, just that character. And frankly, I think
Nick Holt's great. I just like him in general. And
Yeah,
Errol's Comp is
same.
a good one. I thought.
I think the funniest person in this movie is the dude running the support group.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
Like he kind of steals the show in every scene he's in, honestly. And I think that those are some of the better written scenes. That feels like where the heart of the movie is. Somebody had an idea of like this Dracula Renfield thing being framed through like a modern therapied like abusive relationship angle, and that is where I think all of the strongest comedy comes from. I'm almost just sitting around bored when I'm waiting to get through the mob stuff and like the buddy cop movie, and it's just like it's kind of strange. I don't know, it's interesting, but it's not terrible. And like I think had I not had to go to a theater to see this, I might be a little easier on it, because like this to me has Shudder exclusive written all over it. Like,
But it like Eric did like this. The budget here is you combine 10
yes.
no more than that, probably 15
John-
Shudder exclusives. And
John,
this is like,
I'm not their business manager. Somebody fucked up somewhere. It wasn't me.
if you saw this on Shudder, you'd be like, what?
Right. I mean, especially nowadays, like the average Shudder exclusive is pretty low budget.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So yeah,
That had some problems.
it's not terrible. It didn't super win me over as much as like maybe Casey or Ariel, but again, like I also just wasn't fully with it, I guess, when I watched it.
Yeah. See, I mean, I'm the type though too that eats it up when Nick Cage is doing his weirdo thing. I just love it.
Me too.
And it cracks me up and it entertains me. So the more of it, the better for me. I understand it's not for everybody.
I was surprised my crowd was like dead silent. Like I had a decent little crowd for it, and like I feel
so
like people
weird.
didn't know what to how to react to anything.
I loved I guess it was the first scene that Nick Cage is in when his I mean, you wouldn't know it was him, obviously, except his voice,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure it was him in a lot of makeup. Because the whole setup, I mean, for the listener, is that Dracula, I guess it immediately follows when he gets burned up in this fire. They show this
That's
action sequence. and he's basically recovering. So his flesh is sort of rebuilding itself, and it's just great because the first couple scenes he looks ridiculous, and hams it up. He's not even breathing appropriately. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was awesome. But I was curious about that too, if that was supposed to be, because we saw a clip as part of Renfield's story when the last of the vampire hunters showed up and he, decided to stick around with Dracula and everything. So I didn't know if this was taking off right from then, because it seems like the time periods from the clip they showed was, quite a bit different. But at the same time, if you think about it, if Renfield's been feeding him bad people for all this time, then maybe he did heal slowly.
I assumed that sequence was like more recent.
It could have been.
I actually don't know.
The black and white one you thought was more recent?
No, the one where
Protection Circle.
Yeah. I think it would have to be because you get to see him all ooey and gooey and rebuilding himself, and then it's like the next day he's eaten like a couple more people and all of a sudden he's almost whole again. So I feel like he couldn't have been burned that long ago,
Yeah.
I was just looking, who was one of the writers on this was Robert Kirkman of Walking Dead and other
Interesting.
things.
Nice.
It has the vibe of some of those like 2010s like indie comics that got made into movies. Like if you told me this was some kind of indie comic thing, I would 100% believe you. That's not an insult. I just mean that's the vibe.
Well, yeah, it's even what was
like, is this R.I.P.D.? I don't know.
That's exactly.
I
was trying to come up with R.I.P.D. So a couple things I want to hit on there. I have heard this described because this is Universal. So Universal obviously owns these monsters. This is what the third, fourth, fifth attempt to try to start some type of IP regeneration around.
They are horny for some Universal Monsters universe, and they just can't figure it out.
They keep spending so much money on these movies and having none of them work out.
Didn't Invisible Man do well though? The Blumhouse one with Elizabeth Moss?
Yes, but I don't know that was like that's not going to be like folded into Renfield universe, I don't think.
Meanwhile, meanwhile you have this
Elizabeth Moss shows up and Renfield's like, I got you, lady.
Meanwhile, I don't know who's behind it, but you have this Last Voyage of the Demeter thing coming out, which is honestly what a Universal play should look like.
Well,
now, although that does really, that really kind of goes back to the original novel, right? And Nosferatu and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But still, but it should be like I don't think you're going to be able to make some funky comedy action deal. Like, I don't know. You need to make a horror movie and hire a horror movie person to do it. I think if you're going to do something with these characters.
Is this supposed to be part of their Universal Monster
I don't know.
universe?
I've
never heard that mentioned.
Well, it is like Dracula is part of that universe,
right?
So
but I thought they gave up on that universe after the Mummy.
No, they did. They did.
Even if it's not the universe, though, it's clear they're still trying to get something out of this IP.
They're trying to find a toehold to build this IP. Like in their mind, this is Iron Man, and like they're gonna make Renfield 2. Like if this was successful, there'd be like Renfield 2, and then they'd be like,
you think so? You think it's that level of what they want to do with it?
I'm sure there's like a plan that someone in their development
because it feels goofy in a way that I wouldn't expect that kind of.
But Universal's doubled down on this stuff too. I mean, they outside of movies, just down the street from our buddy Mando's office, they're building in Vegas. They're building an entire Universal Monsters theme park, little type.
I mean, didn't Lee Winnell do the Invisible Man? Like, just hire him to do it.
Yeah, but it was also Blumhouse. Universal distributed that. That wasn't like incubated at Universal. Look, that Last Voyage of the Demeter. So it's distributed by Universal Phoenix Pictures.
Yeah, it looks alright.
I was like blown
John,
away. Like that trailer.
Answer me this question though. Answer me this question.
Sure.
Why would Dracula want to kill the people he needs to get him to London?
As I said on Slack, Supernatural Man's got to eat.
Yeah, but like, then he's just going to be stranded in the ocean?
Right, but isn't that part of the Dracula mythos that it's supposed to be that he loses control at a certain point and then he'll just wipe out whole towns?
Well,
You're the
and
one who reads books, Ariel. You'll have to tell me.
I read Dracula in like 9th, 10th grade or something.
Yeah, me too.
I believe that Demeter arrives in London or wherever I think it's London. And it's the crew is gone. Like I think it like, arrives and it's empty. Yeah. So like there is this like that is part of the story. It's I mean, when I'm watching that trailer, it's basically Alien, but on like a galleon.
Yeah, you're right. I like that.
Yeah, it really
looks cool.
Mm-hmm. No, it looks great. Yeah, I don't know. Like that's I do think there's so back to the Robert Kirkman thing. Like the thing with this movie, it's 93 minutes long or 92 minutes long, and like that includes the credits. I think I'm pretty sure it's like the actual movie itself is less than an hour and a half. It is a clinic in script writing efficiency.
Yes.
You know, like we were referencing this sort of last vampire hunter scene, and that tees up so many different things that come back later in the movie. And I say that as like a compliment, but it's almost like too clinical. And that's where like I go back to when I was saying before, I said Zarima, like this movie could have been a little fatter. Like if you're gonna have a comedy, give it like a little room to breathe around some of the jokes.
Yeah.
They are just like rolling through this thing at a very aggressive pace. And there's a lot of plot. There's a lot of plot in this. Or exposition, you know.
I think there's a lot of plot lines going on at the same time. And I think what maybe doesn't allow the jokes to breathe is that a lot of times when you have kind of over the top comedies, the world that the comedy exists in is still pretty normal to contrast against the ridiculous things that are happening. But here, like everyone and every part of this world is heightened. Like Renfield kills a bunch of people in the bar and the cop is just like, oh yeah, that was cool. Like totally accepts it. The mobsters are over the top, campy, ridiculous. Every cop in the city is dirty. Like it's all really heightened and over the top. And to me, I don't know, I bought into it and thought it was fun, but I also think that like if you're really talking about how to build a comedy, I think some of that is the problem, is that it's just everything is at this like same kind of heightened level.
Yeah. There's this bit, it's not even they try to get a joke out of it at one point. They go to the end of the movie takes place in the mobster's lair. They have these extreme shades. They're basically metal, I don't know, maybe it's meant to be bulletproof defense or something, but they have like a old school control. Like it looks like something out of like Austin Powers movie where it's like a switch on it that says shades, you know. I don't like that kind of shit. Like
it did.
It did. No, it totally did. There's like a goofiness to it that I would have preferred they lean more into. And I think you're right. Like some of the cop sequences are like they're almost like too straight up, you know. Like, and certainly the stuff with her sister, it's like, okay, like why? I still it's like why is the sister here? Like I get it. She's like meant to give Awkwafina this sort of like emotional core.
Well, I mean,
whatever.
In that same vein, though, in the plot of this movie, I enjoyed Awkwafina a lot in this movie. She didn't need that much backstory. I mean, it's like a case that they had way too much, where we're always saying we wish characters had more character building. She could have just been a down on the luck cop that wasn't in good with her boss and whatnot, and stumbles into Renfield, and it could have been the same movie, right?
Yeah, the sister is like at the FBI, so it like allows them to do more. You know, there's
they
the whole
cut out the dad too.
Well, yes, strong agree. The sister is like she does the blood testing and is like, oh, this blood was at 45 murders over the last like 10 years or I don't know. I mean,
the sister's like just one more thing in the plot that you're like, okay, all right.
Did anybody else hope that when the sister ran the blood on that ink pen that we were going to find out who Apache Joe really was? Like it would be something funny.
Oh, dude, that guy. We should have looked who the actor was.
Yeah,
that was crazy. He was huge.
He was a big guy, big man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just also just loved how ridiculous the violence is. I mean, there's a scene where Renfield like rips off a guy's arms and then throws the arm, and the bone for the arm impales another guy. Like it's so much fun. Or when he rips the dude's face off, while he's still alive.
Oh, that was great.
No, like I wanted more. Like those, I did enjoy that. All that, because there's really only, I guess there's 3 scenes, because there's a scene where he's fighting the drug dealers, which is pretty short, and the Apache Joe guy. And then there's the scene in the restaurant, and then there's that big fight sequence in the in whatever his apartment complex or whatever. Yeah, if you're gonna go for it, like go. I guess that's they only had $65 million to spend, so they got 3 of them. But
yeah, I don't know. It made me laugh too. I mean, I think Eric, you were saying a lot of the self-help stuff was part of your favorite, and I think when Dracula comes to his apartment and he holds up the self-help book to him as though it's a cross to like send him away, and Dracula's just confused, like, what are you doing?
Well, and that stuff's really smart too, and it's a way to kind of like, I like when movies are able to, in a clever, especially humorous way, bring in like modern, like it's modern therapeutic language, but it's also like a Twitter language in some way. It kind of reminds me of like, what's that movie, John? The kids in the house.
Oh,
with the
one that we all
one of them
hated?
dies. I liked it.
Oh, I thought you were the one where nothing happens and the windows disappear. Well,
No, the one with Pete Davidson.
Bodies.
Yes, thank you. Like that movie sort of treads similar ground where it's using sort of like therapeutic language for humor, like in just the way people wield it.
Yeah.
Like and that guy in particular is just like, oh, that's a narcissist. Although that's a weird way to put that, because he had said something about like sucking his victim or whatever it was.
No, he wouldn't achieve full power.
Yes.
That's also, that scene was also in the trailer.
And that's what's great, because like it's what he's saying is sort of like works with both things, and that's where like a lot of the humor comes out.
They that actor that plays the group leader for the group meeting, Brandon Scott Jones, is in Ghosts on CBS. If you haven't watched it, he's pretty great in that too.
Interesting.
Funny dude.
Any favorite sequences that stuck out?
I really loved. So after Renfield left the group meeting or group therapy and decided he was going to stand up to Dracula, and he's back at his apartment. Dracula shows up. I thought was the funniest part of the whole movie, as Renfield is standing up to Dracula, because it's all in watching his body language and Nick Cage's reactions to everything he's saying, because this is where Nick Cage it up. So watching Dracula going, oh, I just thought was freaking hilarious.
Yeah, so like I didn't like that, and that was like that particular moment was where I was like, maybe I'm just not in on this Cage thing. Like, good for him.
We mentioned it briefly in passing, I think, and Casey brought up over email, but the intro sequence I thought was very well done. I've seen the original Dracula a handful of times, and it's I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was really cool, because they even did the thing that they did in the original Bela Lugosi, where like the spotlight is kind of right in the middle of Dracula's face, and they copied that perfectly.
Those were like shot for shot, like very clean, and like from multiple parts throughout the movie.
Yep. It was very cool.
I will say this was not a positive. There is voiceover in this movie that, when I said screenwriting efficiency, like that's like the downside. There was, and at least to my viewing, there was no reason for the screenwriting or the voiceover. Like it was, my guess, added either. I just find it hard to believe that they wrote that voiceover until after they shot it, and I think they just didn't trust
that we would connect the dots.
Yeah, because it's like Nick Holt being like, Dracula's mean to me. Like, it's hard being Dracula's familiar. It's like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know.
It felt like a stylistic choice to me, but you could be right that they felt like they needed it. They wanted to make it the movie shorter, more succinct, and then they thought, well, we got to do this too.
I mean, maybe to your point, like I guess the argument for it being a stylistic choice is like this is like a comedy, like just whatever, and like that's something that we would have tolerated in a different genre, a different time. I don't know, but yeah, it just felt weird. So
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know. I thought it was funny and enjoyable, and even the ending, which is super cheesy. Can we talk about the ending?
Please.
Okay,
No.
so in
I
the
mean,
end,
yes.
they bring like the whole support group dies, and so does the cop's sister. But then they bring them back with Dracula's blood after basically destroying Dracula and putting little bits of his body into like ice cube trays full of cement and then putting it into the sewer. Very funny. But the way that they bring them back in the support group is having this like pitcher of blood that looks like Kool-Aid you would get in a support group meeting and just like sitting it on the table. I don't know. I thought touches like that were really fun.
I was surprised that they didn't have the ice cubes like say something or like at the end from the sewer, just because they were setting up clearly like they're setting up for a sequel when he's like, boy, I hope this works. Or like, at least leaving the possibility open. So I was expecting a shot of like a pile of ice cubes like talking or something at the end.
I mean, they'd also been dead for many hours, if not days, at that point, and I was sort of like, I enjoyed it, but I also
It
was
would have
like,
been.
It's
they should
dumb.
have
I
looked
get
a
it.
little grimmer, maybe. I don't know. Like,
A little zombie like.
but
It would have been. It would have been fun to see how they're reanimated, but part of the reason why the joke lands is because they just come out of nowhere. They're just there.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
well, I like, and it's the group leader who he gets the moment to be like, and thanks for getting that Dracula blood or whatever. Yeah. Casey is waiting, Eric. I just figure I should.
Oh, I see that.
Call that out for you. Yeah.
My mic was in the way. There he is.
Hi.
There he is.
Hi.
Casey, your computer restarted.
Yes, it did.
John, did you say earlier what the actual box office numbers were? Did I miss that?
I believe I saw under 8 million. It was like 7.5.
Yikes.
It came in fourth. It
That's
was
brutal.
beaten. We didn't even discuss this. There was 2 horror movies released last week. Well, there was one horror movie and then Renfield. This other movie came in second, The Pope's Exorcist.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right. The Russell. What is his
You
name?
couldn't have paid me money to sit through that.
I know.
Well, guess what? It out-earned Renfield. So, and probably cost like one,
I
very small
immediately
price.
thought of that Exorcist movie with
The Right.
Yes, what's his name? Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah,
It was
Anthony
the only movie in
Hopkins,
BGH history that I walked out of a theater.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
really, really bad.
It was so boring.
I don't know. I feel like we're gonna have to watch that movie now.
Yeah, maybe on video. Because next week, John,
Oh,
Evil Dead Rise. Because they're in a high rise, get it? There actually
Sure
doesn't look like
does.
they're in a high rise from the trailer, so I don't understand that exactly.
sort of like a low-rise situation.
Yeah, like a
It's
walk
above
up.
the ground level. Yeah.
Evil Dead walk up, or like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't. Evil Dead triple decker doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah.
All right, would you recommend somebody see this, and specifically in the theater, Casey?
If you're going to, yes,
Yes,
I think it's worth. I think it's worth the ticket price.
Well, if you're out and you got nothing else to do for 20 minutes,
Ariel,
Yeah, I thought it was a good time.
John.
I'm gonna say no, but I will. No judgment if you want to get a bunch of friends together and watch this together in your house, like in 40 days when it's on Peacock or whatever.
My favorite part about it was that I saw it at the haunted mall. There's a full ass haunted mall like 10 minutes from where I sit right now. It just sucks. Like, it doesn't have really stadium seating. It's old and smelly and like whatever. But if I am not really that jazzed on a movie and I don't want it to take up my whole day, that's where I go. If I'm really like, I want to settle in and get comfy, there's a theater 30 minutes from here that's where I'm going. It's new. It's got the nice seats, whatever. But the haunted mall, they still print tickets when I show them my Fandango. So like my ticket, I have like John, I have like every movie ticket since I saw Batman Returns or something in the theater
Yeah, it's
when I was a
weird.
kid. Except for the last like 4 or 5 years, most places just stopped doing it. So when I look back on this era, I won't have most of my tickets, but I'll have my Renfield ticket. So, and I'll just be like, boy, that's weird. Wasn't seeing a lot, but I saw Renfield for some reason. Anyway,
I mean, when you're like senile, you're like, what movies did I go to?
I think this thing has streaming all over it. So like, I would not recommend a theater watch for this, but dude, if you're one of those Nick Cage sickos, you already know it. You don't need me to tell you that. So
Yeah.
I'd
That was
say
my
go for
confusion
it.
because I think it's worth seeing it in the theater, but I think it would be even more fun to watch it at home with your buddies and a 6-pack. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's true.
Endorse.
Yeah, that's it for Renfield. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
And we're back. Ariel,
Yeah.
where can people find you when you're not on Bloody Good Horror?
So I'm part of the Zombie Girls Network, so you can find us anywhere you get podcasts. It's spelled GRRLZ. And I co-host that podcast along with More Deadly, where we cover women-directed horror movies. And next week, our episode will be on Uma. And Elizabeth is joining us for that one, actually. So if you want to catch her, stay
Very
tuned
nice.
for that.
What is Uma? I've heard that.
So that's the Sandra Oh movie?
Yes. Yep. I got to watch that tonight, so we'll see how it goes. And then if you want more Nick Cage, Rachel is on a podcast called The Untitled Nick Cage Show, where they watch every single Nick Cage movie and review it.
Ooh.
Like even the ones he did
There
in
you
Europe
go.
that like weren't really distributed in the US.
Oh, I don't know about that, but like a lot of the real early ones that most people haven't heard of. And then they'll do like the newer ones. So I think they're going to do Renfield next.
Okay. Cool.
Oh,
That'd
and
be
we're
fun.
at ZG Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. So you can follow us there.
Very nice. Mr. Schnorrs,
Eric?
you want to tell people about our Patreon podcast feed?
Yes. This was something actually in our BGH survey. We were curious. One of the features of Patreon is that it creates an RSS feed. That is important when you are a podcast creator like BGH because it is the way we can distribute the podcast like direct to patrons without having to go through where we normally host, which is at Anchor. So if, for example, we were to create a bonus episode and put it on to Patreon, you'd need to have that RSS feed. So we are recommending, this is like a public service announcement for patrons, anyone who's patron curious, you can also go check this out. There's an RSS feed there. When you sign up, when you log in, you're looking at the Bloody Good Horror page as a supporter. It should be on the right-hand side. There's like a little link, you copy it. They may even, and I should have checked this before we started talking about it, they may even have like buttons to add it to specific players. But it's pretty, I don't want to say it's like the easiest thing in the world. Like you have to be like somewhat familiar with your podcast player, but virtually every podcast player will let you add a RSS feed. And, you add this once it's set up, it's like you do it once, you never have to think about it again. I have both the BGH regular feed and the patron feed set up in my podcast player. So I get double the BGH content. Eric, you post the episodes typically a little early on Patreon?
Yeah, so the normal BGH episodes come out first thing Friday morning. Unless, of course, Schnars made us record on Thursday night. In that case, you'll get it when you get it, and you can blame John.
So like usually
but
Friday afternoon.
I
just to be
edit
aware of
them. I'm sorry, they come out first thing Friday morning. So I edit them Wednesday, and the Patreon feed gets them as soon as they're done on Wednesday.
it. Or like
it's
or like
marked
Thursday sometimes.
It's marked early release on Thursday. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and if you don't want two versions of all of the shows, you can just subscribe to the Patreon feed. You'll get all the shows when they come out. They'll just come out. They'll just show up a little earlier, and then they're there. They're there when you want to listen to them. We don't care where you listen to the show. We want you to enjoy the show wherever you want to listen to it. And if you don't want to be a patron, that's cool too. We're happy to have you, and we hope you enjoy the show. So. You can always email us. You can email info@bloodygoodhorror. You can email bloodygoodhorror@gmail.com. You can ping us through Patreon. We're trying to check it as much as possible. And so, just hit us up if you have questions. We're happy to help.
Yeah, it came to our attention in the survey, John, that some people may not know what's up with that feed.
Yeah.
So there you go.
No judgment.
It's neat. Like, you only have to set it up the one time. You just take the link and throw it into you just add it like a feed. Any podcatcher can do this, and you just paste the link in, and then it's done.
Yeah, and I referenced bonus content. Like we're thinking about other things we can do.
Like
there.
you
That's
don't
some
have
of
to
the stuff.
access it through Patreon, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but Eric, we're also still releasing a classic every week through.
Sure. Yes.
Maybe
I'm
we
caught
missed
up with that.
Okay.
It's been a little dormant, but it's coming back.
Yeah.
And there's a lot
we're
in there already.
We're trying to get like a regularly programmed classic, editorially selected classic for your enjoyment in the feed.
Love it. Casey,
Yes, sir.
what do we have on the Twitter?
We got a few tweets out there this week. Starting off, we have at Lord Zombie XIII or 13, I guess. Sorry.
No,
That's
it's
my moment for the
Z.
night. Yeah. If you got to pick which Universal monster you had to work for, who would it be?
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, easy.
Oh, interesting.
Well, if Mr. Hyde shows up, it's gonna be a rough day. But if Dr.
You're
Jekyll's there,
prepared.
it's pretty chill. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd have to go Frankenstein because, he's my boy. I love me some Frankenstein.
But
are
he's
you
really,
working
at the end
for
of the
Dr.
day,
Frankenstein, or are you working for the monster?
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to work for the doctor, right?
no, I say you can work for Frankenstein's monster.
That's true.
Which
But
really,
that's-
at the end of the day, he's a good guy, more or less. So
Yeah.
He's
He might
just mis-
accidentally
he's
throw
just
you into
misunderstood.
someone if he
That's
loves
for
you.
sure.
he's misunderstood. Yeah.
But
You ever
that might
seen?
be like changing out his bedpan in his little cell in the bottom of the castle or something all day. I don't know. That
John,
I want
have you ever seen the Frankenstein from Monster Squad? He's a real cool dude.
that.
Didn't we end up covering Monster Squad on the show?
I have no idea. If we did, it was a long time ago.
But in any event, yes, I have.
I feel like we might have reviewed that like 12 years ago or something.
It's possible.
Yeah. All right. Next up at Schnecky91, Renfield versus Igor. Who wins? Not in a fight. How about in the game of life?
I love the Renfield
The
in
dubious competition.
I
Yeah.
love the Renfield in Bram Stoker's Dracula. He's just like a raving lunatic in an asylum, and he's got this crazy steampunk square wooden cage thing around his head for some reason. I have no idea why.
Right.
It's real cool. This is the production design in that movie is so neat.
Yeah. If I could be Igor from Young Frankenstein, I feel like that guy is winning.
Oh, is that the question? I don't know. I don't want to be. Yeah.
Winning in life. Is that what you said?
For the record, we have not covered Monster Squad. I must have just watched that at some point over the last couple of years.
Huh. All right. Let's see here. Next up, we have Well-Adjusted Horror. What's the oldest horror film you've enjoyed watching?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh man, that is a good
Wait, did you say oldest?
Yes.
Haxon is really cool. That's like a silent film from the 20s about witches.
I own
And,
that on DVD, and I've heard that is really neat, but I've never watched it.
You should. It's really
How
interesting.
long is it?
It's not that long, I don't think.
Yeah, it's short.
Um,
For me, I would say it's Peeping Tom, which
Yeah,
came
that's a good one.
out just before Psycho.
That's like,
60s.
that was like
I
late
don't
50s,
like
I
old
think.
movies, John. I'm a they bore me.
Hitchcock's The Lodger, I think, was like late 20s. That's
Here's the
really
thing,
good,
John.
too.
I can recognize the artistry and the, foundational building blocks of old horror movies. I do not want to sit down and watch them.
I don't like sit down and watch them. Like I have seen a bunch of these movies, some in academic settings, and ended up really enjoying them.
Like
In
Joe
those
Bob did
settings.
the original Nosferatu, and I wanted to jump out my window. I literally could not handle sitting
Yeah.
through that movie.
Yeah.
I was like, we watched Dr. Caligari, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari in one of my film classes, and like,
Mhm.
yeah, like, look, it is it's really slow, but like, it's I don't know, it's like interesting to kind of like see an experience. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is like, enjoyed how? Like, Peeping Tom's a great movie. That's like a really good movie. I was trying to think like some of the Universal old school, like The Raven or the Pit and the
Pit and the
Pendulum.
Pendulum. Yeah, that one's really
Um,
old, too.
I mean, I like the Todd Browning stuff. Like there a lot
Yeah.
of the old Frankenstein Dracula the original Bela Lugosi Dracula is great.
Yeah,
Is
it
it
is.
Dracula's Daughters, I think,
Mhm.
is one of the old, like that one. I mean, a bunch of those are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love old horror movies, so.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
they don't do it for everybody. Like I always give Rachel a hard time because she hates black and white movies.
Yeah, have you well, meet Eric and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad to know because I think of you guys as being so like learned and erudite. I'm glad to know.
No,
I have
I'm
an
kidding. She doesn't
ally.
like hate them, but she always like groans every time I force her to watch a black and white.
Yeah, and honestly, like it's funny because that's like Elizabeth's wheelhouse is like old school black and white stuff. So I will watch stuff with her because kind of through her perspective, I can find something to be interested in. But and it's again like I'm not sitting here being like those movies are terrible. I'm just being like it's like Nick Cage. I'm glad it exists. It's not for me.
Easy. What are the what's the oldest Hammer? Is that like mid 60s?
No, it's like in the late 40s, I think. So they go
Dracula.
older, but they're not super old. But they started coming out probably,
It looks like Dracula's 58.
yeah. So maybe about 20 years after the Universal's 20 some.
Okay.
I would have to cheat. I'm not saying I have to cheat. I mean, but Dracula and Frankenstein is pretty obvious for me. So I would throw out Freaks that came out in like 32, right after Frankenstein and
yeah,
Dracula.
that's a great one too.
Eric loved Freaks. I remember when we watched it. You had a good time with that.
Okay, I did like Freaks. When was that? 30 something.
32.
32.
Yeah.
All
That
right,
is
so
that's a good
John,
one.
I not only forgot that I've seen that movie, I forgot we did a show on it. I forgot it existed.
Eric Google Goggle. We used to say that all the time. That
Yeah,
was like
that's
a
true.
thing. So
Good pull.
All right, and the last one here we have from @C Slenderson. What is your favorite Dracula rendition?
Oh,
that Hammer 58 is really good.
Oh,
I mean, Christopher Lee as Dracula and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing is my favorite combination. Bela Lugosi is
agree.
great, but those two together are like, peanut butter and chocolate. Every movie
Oh,
they
yeah.
did together is fantastic. I love it all.
To me, it's
agree.
definitely Bram Stoker, the '90s one.
That's good too.
I'll go to bat for Monster Squad Dracula. He was pretty sick.
Yeah.
He legit to me is one of the scariest ones. That dude who plays Dracula in movies terrifying.
In Monster Squad?
Yes. John, he has dynamite. I'll fuck you up.
Yeah, he's got something going on.
Yeah, mine's definitely Christopher Lee and like the horror of a Dracula and all those. I
Yep.
just eat those up. Those are great.
Yeah, they're
And,
really, really good.
They're so good.
yeah.
That we talked about it, Casey, but as we do more staff picks, I would love if you made me watch a Hammer movie. If you curated
Yeah,
something
definitely.
for me.
You should.
It's the only way it's ever going to happen. Let's be real.
Well, yeah. Since we started talking about that, I've got my I'm loosely set on Frankenstein Creative Woman. So
Interesting. Sounds like a deep cut.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not one of their main ones though.
All right.
That's it.
Let's see. My dog is dying. Let's see what we got.
I was like, whose animal is struggling here?
I took him to the doctor, and he gave me a bunch of medicine, and it made him worse. So I took him
Oh
off it.
no, poor baby.
Eric, I got some medicine. I'll send you.
I like that.
this
It was
is an
funny. It was a new
anti-animal
vet.
joke.
You ever have
I
a
like to
vet?
make it respond.
You ever have a vet? This has happened to me twice. Like where they're so thorough, and the care is so good that I get annoyed because I'm like, could I get this type of care for myself as a human fucking being? Like he sat there for like 25 minutes explaining every possible reason that this might be happening, and I was getting upset because I was just like, great, I have autoimmune issues. Could you talk to that? Because no doctor can seem to help me with that at all.
Can you take me in the back? Check me out.
Yeah.
It's like on the Seinfeld where the dog has the cough.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Duck Sensual. No. Yeah, Duck Sensual. Are we in another vampire renaissance?
Possibly. They're gonna make a new Twilight TV show. I just heard about today.
Ooh.
So
Now, I'll be honest, like vampires in general are pretty low on my list of things in horror
Yeah.
movies. So
I mean, that's a good call though. We got this in Demeter.
yeah,
But like, I would say, did we ever leave one? Like, I feel like there's sort of like a steady
you get something every
stream
couple of
of,
years.
Yeah.
Vampire. It's the idea of vampirism is just so rife for interpretation, and like it's played like a lot of different ways across generations and different cultures. I don't know. There's been plenty of vampire stuff, but sure, maybe. This
Related-
Demeter movie looks like the most expensive horror movie ever made, except maybe Renfield this year. So
Yeah, I'm interested. Did you catch a release date on that? I didn't.
it's like in August.
Yeah.
Interesting. August is the new like beginning of the horror season though for
Yep.
Hollywood, I feel like.
It definitely is. Yeah.
Related question from Dan. Dan looks very clean cut in his profile picture. I am surprised he's a listener, John.
I didn't realize we were
He
judging.
looks like he looks like an insurance salesman. He says, "Do we need
Maybe
more
he is.
numerous Do we need more humorous vampire stuff? Isn't what we do in the shadows the peak?" Question mark.
I mean that's
Yeah,
hard to
it
beat. That
absolutely
show
is.
and movie
Yeah.
are so good.
Totally.
But like Josh Schnars said, I'm open to more because there's a lot of interpretations of vampires, and so could be a lot of interpretations.
I will
of
say,
comedy around it too.
Vampire humor definitely peaked at
Dracula Dead and Loving It.
No, I was
Yeah.
gonna say Peter's not coming to the meeting. He's 9,000 years old. That's in the opening of What We Do in the Shadows, and it's the best vampire joke ever made. What are some other actors that you would like to see have a Nick Cage like renaissance?
Ooh, that's a good question.
There's only one Nick Cage, let's be real.
Yeah.
I honestly was gonna say Bob Odenkirk, but that's already happening for him, so
Well, I feel like a lot of it's almost exclusively men. Like I don't think women they don't have this lane to go in. I mean, I guess maybe a couple like
you know who it is? It's Tilda Swinton is the male Nicolas Cage.
but
She's
I
just
mean,
better.
Mia Goth kind of goes all out
Yes.
and crazy, you know.
Mia Goth has a little bit of a Nick Cage
well,
vibe.
sorry.
Yeah.
There's also like I was referencing sort of like an ageism issue because
Oh
like,
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah, like
Once
you
a
can
woman
be
gets
like
older,
a crazy
it's like
you can be a crazy woman actress. Like that's like
I just
totally
mean
fine.
crazy auteur, like pick whatever projects you want kind of thing.
I just think Nick
Oh,
Cage
I
is saying
know.
yes to a lot of stuff. Than
I mean,
more
he comes
stuff
out
than
with
you.
like 6 or 7 movies a year.
yeah.
lately.
Yeah, but what's happened though, but he's created this really brilliant for him loop where he showed the willingness to do all these projects, and now I feel like people are creating projects
It seems
just
like
for
it.
him.
Well,
Oh,
they
definitely.
made
he's
a movie called
Yeah.
The Unbearable Weight of Whatever.
right.
Count,
So like
and-
he's created his own feedback loop that's now giving him these projects. That he wants.
Yeah.
It's
You know
really-
who I would-
you got to give hats off. I mean, for real.
You know who I think needs a renaissance like this is Rick Moranis.
Yeah,
Oh, that
he's
would
not
be
going
I
back.
think that'd be
though, bro.
awesome. I
don't
know.
think there's any
It's-
amount of money bringing him back.
I understand the personal issues and I feel for him, but it
He
would
just
be
wanted
great
to be
see.
away from Hollywood, right? Wasn't that the deal, or was there more?
I think his wife passed away, and so he retired to take care of his kids.
Interesting. They got to be adults by now. He's old, right?
Yeah.
He is the best. Anytime I see him in a movie, he just like steals the show.
Oh yeah.
Ghostbusters 2? Come on, John. He's the best part of that.
Yeah, no, Rick Moranis is amazing. We watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Or maybe I was talking about this with showed my kids Honey, I Shrunk the Kids 1.
I need to
Oh,
do
that's
that.
so cool.
It's amazing. They loved
Yeah,
it.
it's such a good movie.
It's so good. Yeah.
I've been going through the Miyazaki catalog with my children. So far, Spirited Away, by far their favorite. Scared the 4-year-old a little bit, but she came back.
Have you showed them Kiki's Delivery Service? Because I feel like
yeah.
that would be a winner with
They
kids.
didn't. The
Really?
older one liked it, but I think they found it a little slow.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I
that's
guess.
fair.
Especially compared, there's so like when you watch Spirited Away for the first time, it's like, what am I even watching? It's almost it's
Yeah.
mind blowing how strange that movie is, and there's always something weird happening. Kiki's is a lot more like
Subdued.
flowing and subdued. Like it's interesting.
Yeah.
They liked Ponyo a lot too.
Oh,
We
sure.
just watched
Howl's
that
Moving
one.
Castle is really fun. I
So
love that one.
Lily my oldest wants to watch that one, but I've had people tell me that it's got some stuff in it that's more like older.
It's a
themed.
little older, I think.
But it depends what that means because kids these days, like whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot more relationships.
Eric's swearing
stuff,
at
if I
her
remember
regularly. So
right.
That's what I mean when people say that. I don't know what they mean. I need like specifics as to what that means so then I can judge. Next up from Rory, would you eat bugs for superpowers? No.
Yes,
Sure.
absolutely.
obviously,
I did used to when it was a big thing. I did try a bunch of stuff back in the day made with cricket stuff, but it was cricket powder. That's just powder. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's a little
Yeah.
earthy, but you would never eat it and be like, "This is bugs." They would just make like
Yeah.
protein bars out of it.
Let's be real. I'm not going to eat any spiders, but like other bugs, I'd be okay with.
I would buy. It's great for protein bars for me because I can't have whey protein, but it's more expensive. It's like, wasn't the whole point of eating bugs that it was like cheap and eco-friendly? You know, like they got to
Yeah, and
scale it.
I think it was more
Sustainable.
sustainability than anything.
yeah, it's the scaling. They're not there yet because
They
you
need,
got to
it needs
convince
to
a
be
lot more people to
scaled,
eat
right?
bugs.
We need to get more people eating bugs. So let's go, everybody.
Yeah.
Let's help me out, please. Anonymous says divorce advice question mark.
Oh no.
I said I probably don't have good advice, but I have get a lawyer. That's my advice.
It's
And
like
got
step one. Get
this is legit what I tell people beyond specific advice. Get a lawyer and a therapist. You need to be in therapy. I'm a big advocate for it, especially when you're going through a very huge life-changing thing like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
An old acquaintance was texting me this the other day and I was telling him to get a therapist and he was ignoring that part and I just kept reiterating like, no, like also get a therapist. Last one. Would you welcome an undead eternal Nicolas Cage? Here's the thing with actors, like they're all going to be digitized in our lifetimes and that's going to be a whole thing we're going to have to deal with. So like
So creepy.
he's probably
Yeah.
not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I was thinking was like, in the way that here's my far out thought for the day, John. In the way that monoculture sort of stopped in the early 2000s, at the time that internet, streaming, social media, right, like everything splintered, and you failed to have those like huge cultural touchstones, and that includes like big actors, right, like. New actors don't necessarily get huge the way they used to with
there's no
everyone.
Yeah.
And then, which is why, like, you get 60-year-old Tom Cruise still making Top Gun shit. Like, for me, it feels in a lot of weird ways like nostalgia froze in our childhood. Now, like, will one day all of those actors just get digitized and there will never be new stars? We'll just have, like, digital Tom Cruise making movies for 100 years after he's dead?
No,
hope
but
not.
Eric,
Nah.
the thing is, like, I agree with you. There will be like digital whatever. Tom Cruise might like be showing up in movies for a long time. At some point, though, like the audiences don't care. Like, you know, our kids are going to be like, why am I still watching this person who has been dead for 30 years? Like, I believe there is like an authenticity to like human, because it's not just that Tom Cruise is in the movie. There's also like, I mean, Tom Cruise is a bad example because he doesn't do a lot in public, but like these guys show up and like they're like real human, that guys and gals, not just.
I mean, I think that too, but what happens when a generation is raised on it and is not as freaked out by it as we are? It's like anything else.
I don't think it's a freaked out thing. I just think like I actually think there will become a premium on the human interaction the more this like inauthentic stuff comes into,
Yeah,
like,
I really
more
hope so.
hyper-
I also wondered.
Like, oh, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I was gonna say like I also wondered if studios would go the way, let's say 20 years from now, if studios push the way of having everything be like AI and digital just for money purposes, right? Like you could have a renaissance in the indie world for this exact reason you're saying, John, that then movies made with real people could like become its own thing.
Look, people want to see people. There's still a very vibrant Broadway,
John,
and
but listen, whether or not
performance
we see
community.
it happen though.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, whether or not I think we will see this happen in our lifetime, I believe it will be indistinguishable at some point. Whether that happens when we're dead, whatever. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you're going to be able to tell the difference at some point.
But you will, like, okay, let me give you the counterpoint, or like the like other, like, we've been to horror cons. The number of people that line up to speak to their like favorite actor, we're talking like super Z-level stars have like fairly large like lines. Wait, like people just, that's what people like. People love the movies, but they love the people. They love the humans that are in the movies. You're like,
I don't disagree with you.
You can have like some like computer program be like, hey, come interact with.
Honestly, I think I just
Tom
assume
Cruise robot. And it's like, I don't know.
Since 2016, I just assume the absolute worst in humanity. So I'm looking at this scenario like, what's the worst way this could break?
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying it's not technically possible. I just think like there, to your point, like whether it's indies, whomever's driving it, there will be commercial incentives that are pushing in the opposite direction as well.
Well, not to mention like SAG and stuff like that. The unions would burn down studios if they started doing that.
But they're not
they'll
gonna
lose eventually.
That's the point,
Yeah.
right? They're not going to be able to resist it, so they're gonna have to figure out. So like the WGA just struck a deal, and at least from what I was seeing, it was basically like they are allowing writers to use AI, but part of the deal was that a script cannot be credited to an AI.
Well,
so like,
hold on. The WGA has not agreed to a deal as far as I've seen. Like, unless that happened in the last 2 hours, like they're going to go on strike. That is.
Oh, that's right. That was part of what they were negotiating, right?
But that's like,
how to
that's
deal
like
with AI.
that's like an easy one in like the universe of what they're like negotiating on. But yeah, I mean,
but I could see a situation where, so like some actors clearly, right, will never approve, especially the old school ones. You're going to get a certain percentage that will absolutely never approve like digitized versions of themselves, especially after death or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I could totally see a scenario where an actor wants to set up their like descendants, right? Because once that actor's dead, they're not making money anymore.
It's just,
so like I could see a scenario where an actor pens a deal and is like, under these circumstances, you can use me, but my family gets all these royalties or whatever.
Sure, but
Well, aren't they
like,
making a movie where like James Dean is going to be starring in it as like a digital version of him? He's like the star of the movie. It's
I
creepy.
hadn't heard
And
that.
that's
It's
even more
possible.
interesting. That's even more interesting to me. Like actors who died long before they could have ever envisioned this. Like that's such a stickier moral issue, right? 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, they could have never consented to it.
Yeah, it's weird. And like Disney has already digitized like most of their actors, right? So because they have plans to be able to do that kind of shit. I just think it's creepy.
Right? Anybody that's been in mocap, like,
Yeah.
But you don't even need that anymore because they can just feed the footage into something and it'll learn you.
Well, it's like Carrie Fisher. Didn't they do like 3 scenes with her after she died in one of the Star Wars movies?
Right. And
Speaking
instead of casting like younger actors, they just de-age people now.
Yeah.
You know?
Christ, they could do a whole movie. With speaking of the saving the mocap stuff and recreating from that, they could make like a whole movie out of just 80 circus roles.
Yeah.
That's true.
I mean, look, we all watch animated movies all the time. Like, we talked about the new Super Mario Brothers. Like, it's like a spectrum, and I just think there's always going to be people who are like, don't show me this fucking computer generated nonsense. Like I want real actors in my movies.
Right. I mean, because acting is an
I-
art form, right? I want to see actual
Yeah.
artists.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm
again,
not
like-
that person, John, but I will respectfully disagree and
But
think
again-
there's 100% people out there who will not care once it gains parity with the real
Do
thing.
you think people are going to not go to like plays? Or are you saying like
Who
they're going to
goes
like
to
go to
plays,
plays?
John?
Pretend, I mean,
He's talking.
Listen,
fairly
I know a certain
vibrant part
percentage of
the,
people
like-
go to plays, but like what percentage is that?
I mean, it
Yeah,
keeps
I mean-
Broadway alive.
Yeah, look.
Yeah, that's one
and, like,
place.
There's like Eric, you live in the fucking boonies. Like that's why there's no place. Like if you live in a city, like my town that I grew up in, that had like 20,000 people, had a fucking theater that had this play every night of the year. Like it's like,
We even have
They
dinner
will
theater
do.
in Indiana, Eric.
yeah. I mean, like it's so. I don't know. I just whatever. We'll see. I guess we'll know. We'll figure out a wager. We should make a wager.
I think some people don't care about authenticity in the way that we do. Is all I'm
I
saying.
think there's. I
We'll
would agree
see.
that we're heading that,
Especially
heading
these
that direction.
kids growing up on YouTube and like watching
Yes.
Coco Melon and shit.
I think we're like a generation or two away from that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You ever seen
Still
Wall-E,
movie?
John?
We'll be dead, so it won't matter at that point.
Exactly.
Will we, John? Will we be dead, or
I
will we
mean,
be in the cloud?
Robot Eric, I got a feeling you're not going to
Futurama style, just like my head in a jar, reviewing like Renfield 8
Yeah.
in the year 3000.
I don't think they'll be making Renfield 8. Just,
You never know. All right, that was fun. I guess we're doing Evil Dead next week. Now I got to figure out when I'm getting to a theater. Maybe I'll drive all the way out for the comfy one this weekend, John. We'll see.
I'm
Treat
taking
yourself.
Eric. You probably don't have to deal with these yet. They're doing New York State tests this week. Like so, third grade and up. It's like I think every grade after third grade has to take like the state exams, and my son's been like complaining about it for weeks. And the
Lame.
school stresses them out about it more than they should. Long story short, I'm taking him to see Dungeons and Dragons as a reward for finishing.
I heard
Oh,
that was
nice.
fun.
I've
Oh,
heard
nice.
That's really fun.
I'm very excited. He's very
Yeah.
excited. It's gonna be great. And then I'll watch Evil Dead Rise too. So.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. That's gonna do it for Renfield. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.